Well, hello, everybody. My name is Paul Horton. Welcome to the 2021 Olympia Neighborhoods Candidate Forum. The City of Olympia created the Recognized Neighborhood Association program in 1989. Neighborhood associations conduct social events, improvement projects. They promote activities to enhance the quality of life of our neighborhoods and provide a way to communicate neighborhood interests to the city. There are 35 recognized neighborhoods who share information and collaborate under the Council of Neighborhood Associations. If you'd like to learn more or become involved in one of these neighborhood associations, email cna.olympia@gmail.com. Several different neighborhood associations have come together to sponsor this 2021 council election forum to focus on issues of particular interest to the city's neighborhoods. So special thanks to our team of forum organizing neighborhoods, the Bigelow Highlands Downtown Neighborhood Association, East Side Neighborhood Association, East Bay Drive Neighborhood Association, Nottingham Community Association, and the Southwest Olympia Neighborhood Association. Also, thanks to the Council of Neighborhoods Associations and special appreciation to Thurston Community Media for providing the venue and the resources to make this virtual forum possible. All 10 of the Olympia candidates for the 5 positions up for election this November have been invited to participate. Only one candidate, Spence Wigand, who sends his regrets, will not be able to attend the forum due to a prior commitment. We have selected 5 questions based on the responses from an Olympia Neighborhood Association survey and the submissions, the majority of which came back into 5 different areas: housing, public safety, homelessness, neighborhood engagement and recognition, and land use. Each candidate's going to have up to 2 minutes to answer each question. And then at the end of their questions, the round of questions, they'll have 2 minutes for a closing statement. So now I want to welcome the 2 candidates running for position number 4, Candace Mercer and City Council Member Clark Gilman. Thank you again for participating in the Neighborhood Forum and for furthering our community engagement in civic life. So we're going to start in on our questions. I'm going to read the first question. It's on the topic of neighborhood engagement and recognition. And Ms. Mercer, I'm going to allow you to go first. This first question. This year, Olympia commissioned a community engagement and public opinion survey, and their consultants found that only 28% agree that neighborhoods are engaged in decision-making. And only 16% feel confident the city listens to resident feedback. So given these low numbers, if elected to the City Council, what would you do to improve on engaging neighborhoods and instilling confidence that Olympia residents are being listened to?
Thank you. I have a lot to say on the survey. First, I'll start by saying my name is Candace Mercer, and I'm running for Olympia City Council because I feel cause to serve, specifically for reasons such as the community value survey's result that shows so many Olympians are unhappy with how the city is being run. I've been a vocal critic of this council. Many of you may be familiar with my work. I have written on homeless response on medium.com. Do a search for Medium and Candace Mercer to see my work. I also did an article on the survey. I'm the only journalist to cover the survey. I also have a YouTube channel where you can find my campaign videos. Candace Mercer on YouTube. Do a search. Thank you. To your question. The first thing I want to say about the survey is I was at the retreat where the survey was released to the public, or released. The survey has not been released to the public. It is not on the the City of Olympia website. It is not on the Engage Olympia website. And when I was at the retreat where the council was presented this survey and these results, they blamed it on a communication issue, that the city is just not doing a good enough job communicating what a good job they're doing. To that end, they spent $500,000 to hire a new comms team. And you know what? That survey is still not on the website. 87% of Olympians are unhappy with homeless response. Speaking to the question at hand, I actually have been on the receiving end of the city's unwillingness to work with communities. I live in the single family dwelling closest to the new project at 2828 Martin Way. We were not involved in any decision making. There were community meetings where we were listened to. We were told a citizen advisory board would be stood up to help work with the project and collaborate for a good outcome. 2 months from opening the project, that board has not been stood up. They have not even tried to recruit people for that board. So I know what it's like to not be listened to. And that is one reason I am running. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then Councilmember Gilman, given these low numbers in these survey, if elected or reelected, or if you're reelected to the city council, what will you do to improve on engaging neighborhoods and instilling confidence that Olympia residents are being listened to?
Thank you for the question, Paul. I'm Clark Gilman. I currently serve on Olympia City Council, and I'm really excited to be running to retain the seat and continue to serve and lead in this moment of multiple crisis and so much opportunity. I've been particularly interested in this question and this issue around neighborhood engagement and how does the city listen to input from residents. I started my city activism as a West Side neighborhood activist, trying to hang on to the West Side Center when it was purchased by a speculating investor. That experience has sort of guided my engagement both as a community and union organizer and as a neighborhood member over the years. I think my job as a city council person has been to invite in residents to participate, to respect the voice I hear from them, and then to work to change rules. Like with the neighborhood associations, we've talked a lot about notifications and when should notifications go out and who should be included in those notifications for land use actions. I see public processes improving. I think improving a lot, both the online versions and the community versions that we had up to the COVID over the last several years. But I still feel that they aim more to explain what the city's going to do than to listen and help and have the community help shape what the city might do. So I see that as the work in front of me in the next term, is to continue to press for more voice for the many in Olympia and more respect for citizen input.
Thank you very much. Our next question is on the topic of homelessness, and Councilmember Gilman, you'll have the opportunity to go first on this one. Senior living in a neighborhood of older modest homes east of downtown Olympia wrote, "I see more and more RVs encamped along city roads and unmanaged trash and nuisance behaviors like nudity and public urination, all despite city outreach and cleanup efforts. I worry that these RVs will soon start parking on streets where families live." Also noted was that when the state of Washington recently cleared and prohibited RV parking along the Deschutes Parkway, some of these RVs are now parking on Olympia streets. So if reelected to the city council, what would you do to prevent the spread of these encampments in Olympia? What actions would you take to have Tumwater Lacey and the county step up to provide safe and sanitary place for people that have no home other than an RV to park legally?
Wonderful. This is a question and an issue that in recent weeks has been just dominating the conversation for us. And first, I'll say that there's two interests. One is keeping people who are poor and don't have another housing opportunity alive. That's the first intervention, and the first interest is in keeping people alive. And the second one is in maintaining public spaces that everybody can use. The question of regional cooperation is one that I know we're continuing to call for regional cooperation, and I think we're making some progress. But it's true that Olympia is the region's living room. We're the cultural center. We're where social services are, but we're also where rich people's services like theaters and martini bars are. So we're the hub. And the suburbs are not really inclined to pitch in on this. We're going to continue to ask and find ways that make sense to them to contribute. I was struck by a Robert Reich graph that I saw yesterday about, so what causes so many people to be desperately poor without stable housing, not just in Olympia, not just along I-5, but across our country. And it was a graph of how much of the wealth created each year in the United States is going to the 90% and how much is going to the 10% of the wealthiest people. And you just watch the greed taking more and more money for the few and leaving less and less for the rest of us, and forcing us to tax ourselves in regressive ways for any kind of social safety net we want to have. So I think we're here to manage this issue rather than solve it right now, and to live through it together, taking care of each other.
Thank you very much. And Candace Mercer, if elected to the city council, what would you do to prevent these RV encampments in Olympia? What actions would you take to have Tumwater, Lacey, and the county step up and provide safe and sanitary place for the people that have no home other than an RV to park legally?
Thank you. This is the issue I'm running on. I have spent 4 years reporting on homeless response. I've read thousands of documents. I have studied this issue with an intensity that I don't think any single council member has done. I understand it in a way that is intellectually honest and realistic. 87% of Olympians are unhappy with the city's current homeless response. The big problem I see is we have two populations. We have people that are the traditionally homeless population who generally just need a little bit of money to get stabilized and get housing, and all they want is to be housed. We also have another set of population which is different. It is the street subculture that involves urban camping as the problem. These people have become, urban camping is now becoming normalized, and this erosion of boundaries about what is acceptable both for the individuals in the encampments and for the community have been eroded by this council's soft response on homelessness. We need to change and go from a maintenance mindset that these camps are permanent and we must maintain them, to a mindset that is one of growth, of enabling people to get out and finding ways for them to get out rather than keeping them in. As far as the RV site goes, I find it remarkable. I have watched for 3 years as the city and the county have passed the buck back and forth, trying to get basically a parking lot with sanitation stood up. They have been unable to do that. My solution at this point is to privatize. We have an unmet need, so let's privatize it and get somebody in there with capital, open up some campsites for these people that are safe, sanitary, and healthy for the community.
Thank you very much. Our third question is on the topic of public safety. And Ms. Mercer, you'll have an opportunity to go first in your response. Public safety is an important issue for neighborhoods. Did I already answer that question? No, I did not ask that question. It's an important issue for neighborhoods. According to the city's own survey, 79% of residents think downtown is on the wrong track, and only 24% feel safe downtown at night. Another survey on city parks showed 42% of residents indicated there are parks in the city of Olympia where they do not feel safe. Given that Olympia has what has been doing so far is believed to be on the wrong track, if elected, what would you do differently to address the safety and security concerns of residents in neighborhoods, the downtown, and parks?
First of all, I will take it seriously. I will listen to the victims of property crime, victims who have been harassed, assaulted, their kids' bikes stolen. I've heard stories where someone's child's ashes were stolen. Can you imagine? And the reason this is happening is because of a tolerance for harm. In our desire to be compassionate and tolerant people, we are being asked to accept that which should not be accepted. Open drug use, the decriminalization of crime, the dehumanization of OPD. First of all, I will fund and support OPD. OPD is not the problem. They can be part of the solution. I have monitored OPD closely on every high-profile incident. Again, with thousands of pages of FOIA docs, I have confidence in our police force. 70% of Olympians want increased law enforcement presence, which I think is a striking number for such a progressive liberal town that can barely agree on everything. 70% want more law enforcement. Yet we're spending a year to reimagine police. Meanwhile, we have more victims of crime who are being gaslit and shamed and told this is a problem. Oh, you're just uncomfortable. No, people are being harmed. We had a shooting at the transit center thanks to the soft approach taken to Antifa by my opponent. He wrote a love letter to my friends in black. The mayor took the knee to Antifa. That is what emboldened Antifa, and that is what directly led to the shooting at the transit center on September 4th. How can we have a prosperous and thriving and healthy community when our basic public safety is in doubt? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councilmember Gilman, given that what Olympia has been doing so far is believed to be on the wrong track with respect to public safety, if reelected, what would you do differently to address safety and security concerns of residents in neighborhoods downtown and in parks?
I'm actually standing downtown right now next to a full playground and an Arbor Day event just a little bit in the distance there, full of people walking through downtown, coming to Arts Walk. And I just met 2 new downtown ambassadors on my way across the parking lot here. We have recently added downtown ambassador time and crisis response units, both expanded to 7 days a week and extended hours into the evening as an additional response. And the clean team who clean the doorways and sidewalks have had a similar increase in their staffing. And I both know that the visible poverty and having folks living with mental illness come into your personal bubble is super difficult. But my experience of the last few years is that it's not unique to Olympia. It's an issue that we're dealing with across the United States. It's super frustrating, but I think the answer is in funding mental health care and funding substance use disorder care. And I don't see a path to magically clean up the town and tell all the people who scare you that they have to leave. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Our fourth question is on the topic of housing, and Councilmember Gilman, you'll have an opportunity to go first on this one. A neighborhood member stated, "I have lived in the same house in the northeast side of Olympia for 30 years. Homes here are older, moderate in scale. All city council actions on housing are about helping developers build market rate apartment buildings. This does nothing to encourage home ownership, which is still a goal of most families. People like me are seeing huge property tax increases with no relief until I sell my house and move out of Olympia." So this is a 2-part question. First, what would you do to help current homeowners keep their homes? And what will you do to create a path for renters to build equity and provide some measure of economic security through ownership of their homes? Looks like you might have frozen, and so I'm hoping that's a temporary issue. So given that, Ms. Mercer, are you willing to go first on this one?
I am. That is a difficult question. I will say this is one of the hardest questions I've gotten all election. We are in such a housing crisis right now, and what you are not allowed to talk about is that the 40 years of anti-growth policies have led to this crisis. And it will probably take a couple decades really to pull out of it. The increase in housing prices have affected me personally, and I've seen them. Tax increases also affect renters. Renters are a large portion of Olympia's housing need right now. My goal is I would like to remove barriers as much as I can to facilitate high-density housing on the urban corridors. My goal is an ambitious one, and that may be thought of as magical thinking, but I think it's also helpful to have a target to try to work for, even if it's aspirational. And that is, I would like to see Olympia be a place where someone could get a locked room, a locked private room to help solve our homelessness problem, a locked private room for $500. They might share a bathroom and kitchen, but they have a private space for $500. I would like to see one bedroom apartments for $1,000. And I would like to see starter homes for $350,000. I know that seems like a crazy price point, but given our other economic situations, and with inflation, that number may have to grow, but given with the general COVID area, the impact of COVID on our economy, we have to have a target specifically toward lowering housing costs, even in the tide of rising construction costs. One thing I've learned when talking to developers and meeting with the housing community, which I really hadn't much contact with before, is they do not want to build in Olympia. They are overwhelmingly telling me that they want to build in Lacey and Tumwater because it's easier and cheaper and it's a safer investment for them. Right now, Tumwater has 4 times new housing construction as does Olympia. Why is that? I don't know the answer to that yet, but I am an investigative journalist. I am very curious and I am relentless in looking for the answers. And if elected, I will be relentless in trying to solve the housing and homelessness problem in Olympia. Without access to reasonably priced housing, we will lose what's precious about Olympia. My rent personally, because of tax increases, has gone up from $900 to $1,500 in 3 years. And I'm going to have to move next year because a developer bought my property, and that's okay. That's how it works, but it's going to be hard for me to find housing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and welcome back, Councilmember Gilman. We switched order here, but again, it was a 2-part question. What will you do to help current homeowners keep their homes, and what will you do to create a path for renters to build equity and provide some measure of economic security through ownership of their housing?
Thank you, Paul. Housing is actually my central interest. My work career was as a residential business rep for the Carpenters Union. And before I became a rep there, I worked with my stepdad building houses. So it's something I've thought a lot about. And the first thing that I think is really important to recognize is that the city doesn't build houses and that the city doesn't fund houses. So we set policies, we set the rules and regulations, and we create some incentives. To my mind, many of our incentives have been aimed at this mantra of any housing is good housing, which I don't believe is true. I believe that actually just paves the way for gentrification and displacement of people, both like Ms. Mercer was just describing with her rent increases and the writer of this question. I also think we're kind of stuck in a generational change where Marilyn and I, my wife and I, are among folks who have a house with a low mortgage that we've lived in for a long time. If we sell it at market rate, it's not going to be affordable to a couple who were like we were when we bought it. And if we sell it, we're not going to have enough cash in pocket to afford an apartment for the rest of our lives. So folks are stuck. We have an opportunity right now with a West Olympia study. It's actually looking at development nodes on the east side and west side to consider stabilizing existing apartments with weatherization assistance and renovation assistance to try to hold on to those units and aiming aid at the many rather than the few, which could be first-time home ownership opportunities, working with Homes First and Habitat. So I feel successful that we've included those sorts of planks in the discussions about the development nodes.
Thank you very much. And our fifth and final question is around land use. And this time, Councilmember Gilman, you'll be able to go first on this one. Actions by the city of Olympia have effectively eliminated single-family zoning. What would you do to preserve the character of existing neighborhoods such as protecting the tree canopy, views, low traffic volumes, and adequate on-street parking while the city pursues a policy of high-density development?
Thank you. I was hoping there would be a neighborhood character question today. It's been a lively discussion for a few months now. And first, the first challenge is that neighborhood character as defined by the city is defined in a planner sort of way about the shapes of the buildings and their
Councilmember Gilman, you're all broken up and we have not been hearing you.
I think phone and see if the phone connection's.
Okay, why don't we move it over to Ms. Mercer, and then we'll come back to you if you can get the better phone connection there. Ms. Mercer, what would you do to preserve the character of existing neighborhoods such as protecting the tree canopy, views, low traffic volumes, adequate on-street parking while the city pursues a policy of high density development?
Thank you. I'm just making a note. I have a point. I don't miss there. In terms my general philosophy on this question is I feel we need to have a very balanced approach here. We have to both respect the character of the neighborhood. And for me, I know the definition is in question. What is the character of a neighborhood? For me, the definition of the character of a neighborhood is what makes it special. What makes it unique? While also recognizing that neighborhoods are meant to evolve over time. And that means bringing in new life and creativity to the neighborhood in a positive manner. I strongly believe in supporting denser housing in the areas zoned for high density corridors. I think, first of all, just because access for public transit is a key reason, which circles into the parking issue that you bring up, but also the environmental issue. I also think the high density corridors are the way to go because they will not shock our other neighborhoods. Our traditional neighborhoods should not be shocked by huge developments going up. Now, my house is near the high density corridor, so I'm being affected. You know, right now, we're going to have 120 new residents across the street from me. I lost my view of the sky, but you know, that's what it is. It's a shelter. It needs to be done, and I'm okay with that. I think it's also important that going back to the earlier question, we have to have meaningful neighbor involvement. Just listening to us in all these community meetings where they make fancy graphics of what we say, they listen, but they don't hear. They don't hear and they don't act. They don't really listen and take our input into consideration. It's been pure lip service in my experience.
Thank you, Commissioner. And back to you, our man on the street, Councilmember Gilman, to the question. Do you need me to repeat the question? Or?
Yes, please.
Okay, what would you do to preserve the character of existing neighborhoods, such as protecting the tree canopy views, low traffic volumes, adequate on-street parking, while the city pursues a policy of high-density development?
Well, I think that each of those issues of parking and trees have been considered and tussled over for the last several years. But this neighborhood character most recent fight, I think it overlooks the issue that neighborhood character is about the lived experience we have in our neighborhood, that my neighborhood has character the way I see it as being a mix of houses, duplexes, small apartment buildings, college students, professional folks, teachers. There's some beautiful new cars and some broken down cars on the street. And that's the character I've lived in and raised my family in. And that's not related to the shape of the buildings or the or the external appearance of houses matching each other or landscaping being similar. I think that we'll continue to fight about the low impact development standards, which work to protect the trees. And I suspect we'll continue to struggle to find fair parking rules that preserve that parking stall that we all feel like is ours in front of our house. And I appreciate Ms. Mercer's comments. I think she's done some good thinking about this neighborhood character issue also.
Well, thank you both for your responses to the questions. And as previously stated, each of you is going to have 2 minutes for a final statement. And Councilmember Gilman, will let you go first with yours.
There you go. Well, I have found serving on Olympia City Council to be the most challenging, exciting, and rewarding work of my career. I'm really honored to have served you for the last 5.5 years on Olympia City Council, and I hope to continue. I think the first humbling thing about coming on council was realizing that there are no 3 magic wishes, and there's no piece of legislation that one council is going to bring alone to the meeting, that it's a board of 7 folks who work together along with the executive staff and collaboratively make decisions after listening to community input, and then bring those decisions to regional bodies to repeat the whole process over again. I think I've gained some skill at that work. And I also feel like I continue to ask for more, and especially to keep the focus on the many, keep the focus on the people who live here in Olympia, rather than the focus on the value of the real estate in our city. So I'm proud and excited about the work on City Council, and I would really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Mercer.
Thank you. The real crisis in Olympia is lack of leadership. Nobody is willing to stand up and say enough. Enough to people living in encampments. Enough to open drug use and dealing. Enough to decriminalizing crime. Enough to political violence. The current council has lost control of our city. They cannot even provide basic public safety. You can clearly see the results. Ensign Street, the Jungle, Wheeler Street, the Artesian Well, the mitigation site, Percival Creek, Deschutes Parkway. People are ashamed of our city for the first time. People are afraid in our city for the first time, and people are leaving our city. If elected, I will balance the rights of the homeless with the rights of the greater community. If elected, I will fully fund OPD. They are not the problem, but they could be part of the solution. If elected, I will, unlike my opponent, treat everyone equally under the law. We cannot allow double standards where one group is treated differently than another. I will not discriminate based on race, identity, or political affiliation. I am a true nonpartisan independent candidate. Nobody owns me. On November 2nd, please vote for intellectual honesty. On November 2nd, please vote for courage. On November 2nd, please vote for change. I will fight for Olympia. I will not give up on Olympia. This is our home. Thank you.
Well, Candace Mercer and Councilmember Clark Gilman, on behalf of the Council of Neighborhood Associations, the team of neighborhoods that collaborated to organize this forum, and I'd like to thank on behalf of the entire community, I want to thank you so very much for participating in the neighborhood forum and for furthering our community engagement in civic life.